Charlie Kirk's legacy is going to live on in perpetuity. The broader American public is starting to realize the stranglehold that the left-wing media has had on them. We only have to do arenas because that's the only place that people can fit. I am a comedian by trade. Like I am not a hard debater like Charlie was. Thomas More said, the devil can't bear to be mocked.
Remarkable scenes yesterday at the White House. Charlie Kirk was posthumously given the Medal of Freedom. It would have been his 32nd birthday yesterday had he not been tragically assassinated last month. Across America, conservative group held Charlie Kirk Day events. Joining me now is his long-term collaborator and friend Jobob from Turning Point USA. Jobob, thank you for joining us. Look, remarkable scenes, as I say, there at the White House, but I think almost more remarkable is what's happening across the country. It's clear that any plan to silence Charlie Kirk has fallen rather flat.
Yeah, I think the American people as a whole, not even just the conservative movement, but the broader American public is starting to realize the stranglehold that the left-wing media has had on them in pushing the narratives whatever direction they'd like it to go. Because the thing that I think conservatives are fighting for right now, and I love your idea of saving the West, is we're fighting for reality, right? Reality at the end of the day bats last, and reality ultimately will win out. And the more you get people to see what is actually going on and see what's going on in front of their very own eyes, the more that they're going to start realizing that, oh, wow, this is what the country is supposed to be. This is the direction that it has gone. And ultimately, we need to get back on track. And we do that by, again, exposing the crazy lies from the left and getting people to understand that reality exists and we have to operate within it.
There's an expression that Nigel Farage in the United Kingdom uses, that there's something happening out there. There is a turning point approaching. Do you see that across the sort of young conservative movement, across the campuses? Well, obviously we've seen horrific scenes of, sort of anti-Semitic protests and kids cosplaying as Hamas fighters in liberal universities across the United States. But then on the other side of the coin, we are seeing, people picking up Charlie's microphone and trying to have a debate. Are you excited about that?
Yeah, well, again, what I think is actually happening is you're losing, not you, the media itself is losing its ability to direct the narrative in the way that they want it to go. There were only people on college campuses protesting for terrorism for some reason because they thought that that was the mainstream position, because the mainstream media allowed that to be a mainstream position. But the more I think people recognize and realize that, holy cow, the crazies on college campuses are really kind of a fringe minority, and the actual majority of people, as galvanized by the assassination of Charlie Kirk, realize that no, we're actually the majority. I mean, Trump coined the term 10 years ago, the silent majority, and that's true. And the silent majority, I think, is continuing to wake up each and every day here in the United States. Among the conservative movement as a whole, obviously, I think that the tragic situation that we experienced with Charlie's assassination has, again, galvanized, especially the young people who aren't so indoctrinated that they can change their mind and become more realism-focused and carry the mantle for what Charlie fought for throughout his life.
So what's the plan? Obviously, it was announced today that Erica Kirk, Charlie's widow, and now the boss of your organisation, will be joining J.D. Vance on the speaking tours, on the campus tours. So what's the plan? Basically, what are they going to be, sort of arena-style events?
Well, we only have to do arenas because that's the only place that people can fit, right? The lines are out the door. I did an event last week in North Dakota, and in a small town in North Dakota, there was a 2,500 seat theater, and there's no room left. So the reason we have to do arenas is because that's the amount of people that are showing up. And even then, unfortunately, people are being turned away. If I could say something specifically, though, about Erica, in the face of unbelievable tragedy, I cannot be more impressed by the way that she's held herself, by how she's spoken. The address that she gave at Charlie's memorial or his ceremony yesterday for receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom was unbelievable and directly in line with the conservative values that the country was founded on. She invoked the Constitution. I then responded on our show today talking about the Declaration of Independence and where man's rights come from. And again, that's a broader idea of what the West is and what American values are. And the fact that Erica has a firm understanding of that puts Turning Point again, in a tragic situation, really in a very, very good position going forward.
It's vindication from the very top there yesterday, and obviously J.D. Vance, I suspect, perhaps also with one eye on the elections in primaries in a couple of years' time, is obviously out and about the country more. But I mean, you couldn't have asked for a sort of bigger vindication for Charlie's legacy, and obviously President Trump declaring his birthday Charlie Kirk Memorial Day. Would you like to see that as becoming an annual event?
Oh, I think it will become, whether the government recognizes it or not. I think the American people understand the gravity of this. I hope federally it's recognized as a significant day. But also, I think that the legacy that Charlie left is bigger than whatever the government can deem as this specific day we're honoring Charlie Kirk. I think Charlie Kirk's legacy is going to live on in perpetuity, and I think the American people will October 14th as a celebration of his life, whether the government recognizes it or not.
Charlie represented the sort of next wave of conservatism, unapologetic, tech-savvy, articulate, young. Where does that leave the sort of traditional Republican movement? It feels to me that Turning Point is almost becoming a sort of vehicle in itself that's replacing the traditional GOP.
Well, I think Charlie understood better than anybody else that the conservative movement as a whole needs to have as much variety as possible, because conservatives can disagree on various topics, and we've seen that over the course of the last several years, but also still come together as a cohesive unit and a coalition. I am a comedian by trade. Like I am not a hard debater like Charlie was. And Charlie knew that and understood that, yeah, there's different paths, different avenues that people take to come to the conservative movement, whether they get brought in through comedy, entertainment, the arts, the debates that Charlie did on campus. He understood that it took a whole different group of people to form the coalition. And so going forward and continuing to go forward, yeah, I kind of think the old way of doing things is gone and is going to continue to give up its last vestige of hold that they have on the conservative movement in terms of the old way of doing things. And I think this new way of understanding what the conservative coalition is, which is a broad and encompassing group of people, is going to be the way forward. And nobody championed that like Charlie has.
Charlie always says laughter could do more damage to the left than anger ever could. Presumably that's where you come in. Is that the sharpest tool that the right have against the left? I mean, it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel, really, for you, isn't it? Like you've plenty of material to go for with the left.
Well, yeah, there's no shortage of material out there. I don't know that it's necessarily the sharpest tool, because obviously Charlie had a much bigger reach than I do, because I sit up there and make wisecracks. But I believe, I don't want to misquote, I think Thomas More said, the devil can't bear to be mocked, which really is, I think, the way that you have these turning points in people. There's only a certain amount of, droning on about policy that people can take. And while that's incredibly important, the people on the peripheries tend to become attracted to what the conservative movement is saying if humor is at the forefront of it. And again, that's what Charlie understood. That's why I'm a part of the fold. And it's just a further addition to the overall conservative movement.
Well, don't say you don't get everything on Harry Cole Saves the West. Thomas More quote. I think you get a prize for being the first person to quote Thomas More on our show. And you're doing yourself down, clearly an intellectual as well as a comedian. Jobob from Turning Point UK, thank you for joining us tonight. Adrian's still with me. That point there about the GOP old guard being replaced by this sweeping movement, we're going to go to a break in a sec, but 30 seconds, has the old establishment realised that they're being usurped, so to speak?
Yeah, and I think President Trump was, him and Charlie Kirk were in lockstep, right? They both had the same ideas of bringing in, making the conservative movement, like he was saying, talking about having different points of view, because there's a lot of nuance on the conservative side, right-wing political aisle. That's because we're so highly intelligent.